Hi, this OneNote tutorial will be relevant to university students anywhere, but it is made especially for my peers on the University of Tasmania's Bachelor of Psychological Sciences pathway. This version is also much shorter than, or is intended to be much shorter than my last video, as I've tried to refine the key concepts more clearly. This tutorial is largely built around the ability to be at your OneNote while you study, watch lectures, read things, and etc. If you're an on-campus student, you will absolutely benefit from OneNote, but yours will look quite different to mine because the kind of extravagant view I'm about to show you requires a great deal of time investment whilst doing the learning. So I first took a stab at uni in the early 2000s. I was in my early 20s, I did a year of an arts degree, I received a small handful of 70s, a few 50s and an overall credit average. I didn't really have a process, or I didn't have a process for studying. I would read something once, I'd write something up and I'd submit it. And honestly, that's fine. You can get a degree, you can go out into the workforce and you can become successful. I believe in you. For me, coming back to uni in my 40s, I've come with a clear goal about what I want from my time here, which means I want to really understand and apply what I'm learning towards that new career context. Now, my genetic trait is to be a highly disorganized person. I prefer to wing it. I leave it to the last minute, and everything's just done by vibe. Now, if that's you, and if you feel or ever feel disorganized or lost or overwhelmed by your studies or your workplace, I'm making this video for you. Because for me, with how my life went, that vibe-based approach didn't work out so well in early workplaces, and through a continued process of consequences and pain and self-reflection and support from others, I came up with some strategies and some disciplines, and as it turns out, I'm at my best when I have a plan and when I adopt an organised approach. And the biggest game changer for me was discovering OneNote. Now, firstly, I should note there are many tools that can be used in a similar way to OneNote. So if my advice doesn't work for you, if you don't like how it looks on a page, you can find something similar that suits your vibe, your aesthetic, or the platforms that you access it from. So OneNote is a digital note-taking app, and it lets you structure and shape information in a way that aids with deep and elaborate rehearsal, a phrase you may remember being mentioned by Associate Professor Mike Garry in PSY 111. We're exposed as students to such an immense amount of information and data, and we need to take those data and that information and really think about it and apply it to different contexts, particularly to our assessment tasks and outcomes. So here's my OneNote that I've been building out over the last 3 years. Every unit in my OneNote has exactly the same structure. At the top of the page you have outcomes and assessments with AT1, AT2, AT3 here for instance, so I know exactly how I'm going to be graded and I know where my effort needs to go to get the marks that I'd like to achieve. And the handy feature of OneNote is you can pull tabs out and they suddenly become collapsible menus. So this is consistent for every single unit, outcomes and assessment. Then you have the ATs, and if we go back to past units, you'll often see where I've put in additional information like rubrics and essay topics and built it out over time. So that is from first year through to my current, which is my fourth and final year. Every unit has these. Now the strategies have kind of evolved a little bit visually in how it's presented on a page, but the core concept is there. What you have then is at the corresponding lower end of the page you have that is a terrible example. You have on every unit except for just that one there, at the bottom you then have the assessment tasks where I do the work, and every one of these there will be, so here we go, the case study, we have my initial notes, we have some references, some ponderings on structure, and that's consistent again throughout all the units. So these are the spaces where I work on the thing and they then link up with the Word document. Here's a whiteboard I do at work, take pictures, send it home from my OneNote. So we then also, so that's for the outcomes and assessments. Then you have the weekly content. So we have weekly content here in week 5, dementia in PSY 325, neuropsychology and clinical neuroscience, and we then have where I do the work. So each unit I spend time, as you can see, Shaping the images, which are just screenshots, so that's Windows key plus Shift plus S, or Snip and Sketch, or whatever the app is you use for screenshots, whether it's a Windows device or a Mac. And then I build out these pages. So again, every single unit has the content, images that I'm interested in. I draw pictures with the texter tools. I draw links between the information. I write notes. I often talk to myself in the notes. I'll often go back to read my notes in a month later and provide responses where I haven't quite understood a concept and I've written a question for myself. So it's kind of an ongoing conversation that develops that information over time. I also have quiz and exam prep pages, but just in case anything carries forward into the following year, I won't show any of those. So that structure is massively helpful. I often remember things by the shape of the information on a page. So rather than necessarily the information itself, because I have excellent memory storage but terrible memory recall, I can often remember how it looked on a page, which can help me activate the memory that I'm looking for. So what it also does, most importantly, having this structure, spending the time at the start of each semester to build out the body, spending out the time at the start of each week to build out your pages, rather than think about where should I put this information, where should I write this down, instead I think about where would I write that information, where would I go looking for it, because it's the same every time. So I don't have to remember each bit of information and where it is, I just have to know how to get there through that existing structure. Now I match this kind of level of organisation with my filing system as well. So as part of your university studies, you get a subscription to Microsoft 365, which gives you Word, Excel, OneNote and OneDrive. So you can see on my OneDrive, it follows go back to the main page there, follows a similar structure. We have the archived units up here, so I have access to all my every unit ever, the assignments that I worked on, the readings that I might have had to do, particularly for research proposal. If here, for instance, there's the readings that I considered. I didn't use all of those in my paper. I also have tools and records, so I keep track of my academic record. I track results and courses, and as you saw from that opening image, I track my assessables due each month or each semester. So how hard is this to do? My OneNote might appear, probably does, like being too much, but as my original video from 2021 will show, it started from simple beginnings. Yours can be much simpler. You probably have a life and things to do, and you may not have my awful memory recall and my level of inherent disorganization, and you won't need yours to be as extra as this. So think of mine as a more extreme example and then seek to find what works for you. So at the start of semester, I set up my unit pages. I include the assessment overviews, folders for assessment, content pages, keeping in mind that this year the unit outline is no longer the be-all end-all document. There is also the unit schedule, which is at the very top of the content page, which provides you much more helpful information about the kind of nuts and bolts of the unit. During the week, I build out the content names, giving each page its own tab. I organise the information on the page. I use colour and shape to give it a pleasing structure. I write copious notes where it's relevant, talk to myself across pages. All of that just becomes a discipline, and you do get in the swing of it. It does become more natural, and it becomes a thing that is just easier to do each week, and you start to really appreciate it, and you look forward to doing it. So you get OneNote as a subscription. I encourage you to have a look at how you capture notes and how you can structure your life around, in my case, personal shortcomings. That's the video. If you want some more detail around how to set up your OneNote, then I recommend watching my video from my first year in 2021, which I will link in the description below. Thanks for watching.